And good evening. I'm Trace Gallagher. It's 10 p.m. on the East Coast, 7 o'clock here in Los Angeles. And this is a breaking news edition of Fox News at Night. There are reports coming in that Israel has now begun its highly anticipated retaliatory strikes against Iran. Now, we are tracking these developments, and we are hearing that explosions have been heard over Iran proper, as well as in southern Syria, and explosions heard above Iraq. We do not know if any areas of Iraq were hit. We think there were some explosions in southern Syria, and there are reports of possibility of strikes in southern Iran near the Natanz and the Fordow nuclear facilities. Remember, these are the facilities that are said to be places that you can produce nuclear weapons. They also have a uranium conversion facility in Isfahan. And this is also in southern Iran, and there are reports that there have been airstrikes in that area as well. Let's get live on the ground now.
Israel strikes back. The highly anticipated retaliation against Iran happened last night. The dust is cleared, and we now know what really happened. Biden was humiliated. It was Biden that got bombed. Despite the damage from the attack, the real fallout, as we'll find out in our live stream today, was the further damage done to the Biden presidency. And then to add insult to injury, we're also going to see how Biden has lost on yet another international front. Fox News is now admitting that the Ukraine war is completely lost. It's over. And it's Biden who ultimately has egg all over his face. We're going to see what it all means for a new world rising, and you've got a front row seat. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We got a jam-packed show today, as always. I've got answers to all your questions. Of course, it's been the case over the last few months. Our super chats have been disabled because we have been completely and totally demonetized by Google. We are in the process of trying to rectify that. But in the meantime, all you got to do is, if you want to ask me your questions in today's live stream, just click on that link below. Sign up for our Insiders Club at join.turleytalks.com. That is join.turleytalks.com. You can ask me all the questions you like via our Insiders Club platform, and I will answer them right here on our live stream. And if you sign up today for Insiders Club, you can ask me all the questions you want for just $5 a month. It's the least I can do to show my appreciation for you. Show my appreciation. I'm having a Joe Biden moment. Show my appreciation for you for as much as you've done for me during this time. All right, so let us dive right in here. So it is official. Israel has retaliated against Iran for Iran's bombing of Israel last weekend. So it's a retaliation against the retaliation. But it appears that the attack was very, very limited, very measured. Nothing akin to the hype that originally surrounded around 10 o'clock last night on Fox, as you saw. There were original reports that Israel was targeting Iran's nuclear facilities, and particularly a major military air base near Isfahan. But Iranian officials have released video footage of Isfahan this morning, showing that there really was no significant damage and that life is carrying on as normal. So whatever the attack was last night, which I do understand Israel admitted to, it was extremely limited and measured. Clearly, all sides are trying to avoid escalation while maintaining their credibility, as it were. Nevertheless, for its part, Israel could not be happier to, at least in part, widen this war into a conflict with Iran, however measured, because, of course, America hates Iran. We're still very, very bitter over the way Iran humiliated us on the international stage back in '79 with the hostage ordeal. So Israel knows that by dragging Iran, again, at least in part, into this conflict, all of a sudden, all the criticism the Israeli inflicted genocide and mass starvations in Gaza, as the critique goes. All of that critique goes silent, at least when it comes to Washington officials. They hate, let's put it this way, they hate Iran more than they hate what Israel's doing in Gaza. And so it does appear that Netanyahu wants the United States to provide some much needed cover in order to conduct a multi-front war that, for the most part, wipes out their enemies in the region. Netanyahu wants to get rid of Hamas. He wants to get rid of Hezbollah. And he wants to, at least in part, confront Iran, because that confrontation awards him the sympathies of Washington, who've been dedicated to regime change in Tehran ever since the Islamic Revolution 40 years ago. And that enables him, with Iran brought into the theater, that enables Netanyahu to take out Hamas and Hezbollah as much as he can without critique. But that said, something much deeper, gang, is going on here. And I want to make sure you're all on the front lines of this. The Portuguese scholar Bruno Massais has a very good piece out. It just came out the other day. It's on the New Statesman, and it's entitled "The Iran Attack Changes Everything." And he's referring there to the original attack by Iran against Israel, when Iran sent their missile and drone attack on Israel back on April 13th, last weekend. And what Massais does here is he begins his article by contrasting the last time missiles were sent into Israel. And that was back in 1991, when Saddam Hussein launched that barrage of Scud missiles towards Tel Aviv and Haifa. And this latest attack from Iran, he both compares and contrasts with that Scud missile attack back in 91. Today, as back then, Washington was trying to convince Israel not to retaliate and risk escalating the conflict into a broader war in the Middle East. We were trying to contain that war to solely taking on Saddam Hussein, right? We didn't want it going beyond that. That's for sure. Israel's told this time to take the win, as it were. Iran's attack was not that serious. It was very measured. It was more ceremonial. It was a ceremonial retaliation against Israel's bombing of the Iranian consulate in Damascus, which, by the way, no Western country has yet to condemn, right? Israel destroys Iran's embassy in Damascus, kills several military commanders, and the Western world's hunky-dory with that. Of course, Iran has to respond to that, right? So no Western countries condemned that attack 2 weeks ago. So much for the rules-based international order and its rules of fairness. But had Iran really honestly wanted to inflict massive damage on Israel, the 13th of April attack would have looked very, very differently than it did. So the response was measured, and Israel appears to have shot down the vast majority of the missiles via their Iron Dome. I'm sure most of those missiles were dummy missiles anyway. Iran knew they were going to do that. They shot them down with their own defense missiles. So basically, the Biden administration would say, dude, take the win, saying to Netanyahu, take the win. You know, you looked great in front of the world. Iran supposedly failed in their attempt to retaliate. Take the win, right? So that represents a similarity between what happened in 91 and what happened last weekend. Is Washington, D.C. tried to get Tel Aviv to not retaliate and risk escalating the conflict. But as Massais points out, there's also a key difference between these two attacks. Back in 91, Washington was strong. Washington was powerful. Washington was heavily militarily engaged in the region, promising to destroy the missile launchers in Iraq. Don't take retaliation. We'll do it for you. We'll do it for you. We're going to knock out all of those Scud missile launchers. They're gone. Just give us time to do it. We're going to take it out. American forces, in other words, were positioned to destroy the threat. Whereas now, Biden he's in complete and total I mean, he's impotent. I don't know what else to say. Biden, in his complete and total incompetence, is completely impotent in the region. The Houthis are making him look like a clown, cutting off the Red Sea to U.S. military equipment, military, to our ships and so forth. Biden is not promising to destroy the military capabilities of Iran. He's just telling Netanyahu, just don't respond, please. Please don't respond. Don't spread this war, and we all know why he's so nervous about it. It's not even just the catastrophe of what an increased escalation would be. It's the skyrocketing price of energy that'll follow an escalation in this conflict, which in turn would guarantee Biden's loss in November. So this leads Messias to the observation on how the Iranian attack against Israel last week really, in the end, changed everything. It signaled nothing less than the rising up of a new world and new geopolitical order. Up until last week, Iran always relied on proxies to carry out attacks on Israel on behalf of Tehran, right? Hezbollah, right? Or even Hamas to a certain extent. And Biden thought that by warning Iran with that stupid one-word warning, don't. Remember that? Remember, reporters asked Biden a couple of weeks back after Israel bombed Iran's consulate in Damascus. Biden was asked what he had to say to Iran retaliating. And he said, I got one word, don't. Don't. Well, behind the scenes, Biden was relying on the fact that Iran has up until now never directly attacked Iran, and he just assumed they wouldn't. Up until this point, they've relied on proxies, again, like Hezbollah, to carry out attacks on Israel. So he thought he could make himself look like he's in control. He knew ahead of time Iran would not respond directly because they never have. Well, obviously, as of last weekend, Tehran told Joe Biden where he could stick it. Tehran completely humiliated Biden by acting with a new boldness that profoundly damaged Israel's own sense of security. Israel now knows nations will attack it, and they will, if they want to, they will attack it hard, right? Remember, that was a very, very measured response on Iran's part. And we need to point out that Iran, again, in fairness, was pushed into a corner where they really had no choice. I mean, their international status was on the line. Again, if you don't know, 2 weeks ago, Israeli forces struck an Iranian embassy in Damascus, Syria, killing 7 military advisors, including 3 senior commanders. And the strike was a clear escalation in Israel's war against Iran's regional proxies, particularly in Syria, as well as in Lebanon via Hezbollah. And the strike forced Iran to retaliate. They had to. Both their international and their domestic credibility was on the line. And so Iran responded. They had to, right, last weekend. But again, they responded in a way that was very strategically savvy. They launched very measured but yet dramatic response. Again, this was the first missile attack on Israel from another country afar since 1991. So this was certainly a big deal, but it was measured. It was not an onslaught. And what it did is it stammered Israel's sense of security on the one hand, and then forced Washington to pressure Israel to refrain from retaliation in order to avoid a wider regional escalation on the other. A warning, of course, that Israel just ignored. And that's the key to understanding what's really happening big picture here. Make absolutely no mistake, gang, the fact that Iran attacked Israel after Biden's one-word warning, don't, and the fact that Israel retaliated against Iran after Washington militated against it suggests that both Iran and Israel do in fact share one thing in common. They both see Biden as a joke. They both see Biden as an abject clown, as a goof that deserves to be ignored. They simply do not take him or his administration seriously. Now, contrast that with Trump. This would never, ever have happened, ever, under Trump, because all sides, both Israeli and Iranian, they took Trump very, very seriously. By contrast, no one in any of this, no one gives Biden the time of day. No one on the world scene outside of the goofballs and the equal goofballs in Western Europe. No, and by the way, Biden's low poll numbers, we'll find in a moment. His poll numbers look golden when compared with someone like Macron's. Okay. So outside of these Western leaders, no one, 85% of the world's population gives Biden the time of day. And so that's why these Iranian strikes against Israel last weekend, in many respects, changed everything. It really does reveal a new world rising that's radically different from the one that was operative back in 1991 when Israel was first attacked by Saddam Hussein's Scud missiles. And we're going to see exactly what this new world looks like. But first, if you are just joining us, if you want to ask me a question, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below and join our Insiders Club. All you have to do is click the link below or go to join.turleytalks.com, join.turleytalks.com, and you can ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I will answer them right here on this live stream. Also, with the current climate of the media industry, navigating the sea of bias and misinformation is exhausting. Staying informed on the many perspectives is quite valuable, and that's why I rely on our sponsor, Ground News, to streamline my research. Ground News is available as a website and an app, and instead of sifting through multiple sources myself, trying to see every angle of a particular news story, Ground News does it for me. On top of that, Ground News gives valuable insight into each publication's credibility and which way they lean politically. It doesn't erase bias from the articles, but it certainly assesses factors like objectivity and language to categorize each article as left or right leaning or center aligned. So let me show you how it works. Take this article on Trump's lead over Biden in 6 of the 7 swing states. Now, when I use Ground News, I can see that exactly 61 articles have covered this story. Now, interestingly, 60% of the sources are right-leaning. Is it any wonder why the left isn't covering this story? Well, of course, it's because it doesn't fit their narrative. It makes Biden look even worse than he already does as a presidential candidate. So that's one of Ground News' best features. They cover the blind spots here. You can go straight to the blind spot feed and see which stories are not getting covered by either side of the party lines. And you can see every headline created for this topic, which trains your mind to recognize the ways the media uses language to manipulate you in their stories. The amount of time I save by using Ground News is astounding. I'm grateful for the extra time that I get to serve you, my fellow patriots. When I go to a Ground News website or convenient app, I could set my For You page to pull articles on topics I'm most invested in at any one time, like Donald Trump or election 2024. No digging through Google for hours to compare stories on an event. I instantly have access to sources from all around the world. This is one resource that I'm proud to use, and there's never been more important time to be aware of the extreme bias in our media outlets. So go to ground.news/Dr. Steve to check it out. Just click on the link below. It's easier. Head over right now to subscribe through my link and get 40% off unlimited access to the Vantage subscription, which is what I have. When you subscribe, you not only support our Turley Talks movement, but you also support an independent platform trying to make the news more transparent. Click on that link below right now. All right. The geopolitical reporter Pepe Escobar has a fascinating piece out detailing how the Iran strike against Israel signaled really nothing less than the rise of a whole new world, very similar to the Messiah's article. He detailed how Iran's missile guidance system actually used both Russian and Chinese satellite navigation systems to carry out the attack. It was a clear statement that Iran had two very, very big friends behind the scenes who were willing to come to its defense if necessary. Again, we talk so much about a parallel economy, right? Well, here we go. This is gigantic. We're talking now parallel satellite navigation systems outside of that, which governs NATO, for example. Iran now belongs to both the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and BRICS Plus, along with Saudi Arabia and the UAE. And so what we're finding is that Iran has friends, lots of them, economic friends, military friends, with Russia and China being the two biggest. Now, we have to remember that Russia and Iran, particularly, are very close. Their relationship actually began right around the same year we were talking about with the first Gulf War. It began after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. And this was largely due to the resurgence of religious sentiment in the renewal of Russian orthodoxy within the Federation. Scholars have long recognized that Russia and Iran are among the sort of the nations that they are the what, how do I want to put, the vanguard nations, the cusp nations that represent this rising post-secular world where ancient religious traditions are returning en masse and effectively reshaping their politics from geopolitics to what we might call theopolitics, right? We're seeing it even in China right around that same time with the rise of just a mass revival of Neo-Confucianism throughout the country, so much so that China would say, the Chinese officials would say they are a Confucian party, not so much a communist party. It's very fascinating stuff. But this alliance between Russia and Iran grew even stronger with the eruption of the civil war inside of Syria in 2011. Both Russia and Iran were very concerned that the Syrian civil war would result in pro-Western, pro-NATO, pro-WEF forces coming into their region, and they were both determined to stop it. Both countries provided crucial support to the Syrian government under President Bashar al-Assad, while pursuing their own strategic interests in the region as well. Iran has been a long-standing ally of the Syrian government, primarily due to their shared geopolitical and ideological interests. Syria serves as a crucial link in Iran's regional influence, providing a land route for the transportation of weapons and supplies to Hezbollah in Lebanon. Russia and Iran's cooperation in Syria deepened significantly over time. They coordinated their military activities. They shared intelligence to support the Assad regime's military operations. The Russian military provided air support to Iranian-backed ground forces, facilitating their offensives against ISIS. In return, Iran allowed Russia to use its air bases for conducting the airstrikes in Syria. And then the alliance between Russia and Iran went from a military alliance to an economic alliance, with the blitzkrieg of sanctions unleashed against Russia in retaliation for their invasion of Ukraine. The sanctions were so intense that they were actually 3 times greater than the sanctions that were levied against it as the world's second most heavily sanctioned country, and that's, of course, Iran. So Russia and Iran, overnight, in effect, became respectively the number 1 and the number 2 most financially sanctioned states in the entire world. And all this ended up doing is driving them into their arms of each other. Their amount of trade that they do with each other skyrocketed over the last 2 years. And so as these two nations have grown economically closer and militarily closer, Russia is not going to sit back and allow Israel and the West to destroy Iran. It's just not going to happen. It may have happened 20 years ago. It's not happening today. And Iran knows that. Hence why they had no problem retaliating against Israel. They know they got a big brother who, if they brought into this conflict, will in turn bring in another even bigger brother, and that's China, who now has what they call a limitless alliance with Russia. So what does all of this mean? It all means that bumbling Biden has lost the plot. The Biden administration, geopolitically speaking, the Biden administration is in shambles. The liberal world order that they have been so desperately trying to cling on to is slipping through their fingers here in real time. The world is operating increasingly irrespective of anything Washington has to say. And we're seeing it right now in the Middle East. And as it turns out, we're seeing it even more in Ukraine. If you thought things were bad for Biden in the Middle East, wait until you see what even the staunchest defenders of Ukraine are now openly admitting. Gang, it's something we've been predicting on this channel now for 2 years. This is going to absolutely blow you away. First, if you're just joining us, gang, if you want to ask me a question, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club at join.turleytalks.com. That is join.turleytalks.com. Ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I'll be happy to answer them on this live stream broadcast. Also, I do want to give all of you a chance at getting even with Nancy Pelosi. Ew, look at her. Oh, look at her. Coming out of her crypt. You all know that she and her ilk have been getting insider trading secrets for decades now, enabling their returns to beat the market every single year. I wonder how they do that. Well, guess what? We know. Thanks to a little-known SEC database, we can have access to that very same trading information that these politicians are privy to. We get to see what stocks corporate CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback on their trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves that Pelosi and the crooks in DC have. My friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years now, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some have hit, get this, as high as nearly 1,500%. And now it's your turn. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can learn to trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself today. All right, gang, we got a stunning admission from Fox News. This just came out. The Rupert Murdoch network that has been one of the biggest shills for Ukraine funding. They've been one of the biggest supporters of the Biden policy for Ukraine, the uniparty policy. Look at this headline. The Ukraine war is lost. But Hollywood and DC don't know it. And the byline reads, Hollywood and DC ignore the fact that Russia's army is bigger than when the war began, and Ukraine simply cannot keep up. And the article goes on to detail how and why 90% of Europeans now believe that the war in Ukraine has been officially lost. It is lost. And the evidence for that is really quite straightforward. First and foremost, Ukraine simply lacks the soldiers to win. They simply don't have the numbers. Okay. Tucker's been saying this over and over and over again. This is something we've been analyzing for some time now with the help of Colonel Doug McGregor on this channel, as well as Scott Ritter and his analysis. While Western sources have basically been doing everything they possibly can to cover this up, you may remember several months back, a highly classified Pentagon document was leaked online. Actually, there were several documents. And they were in turn confirmed and reported as authentic by the New York Times and other media outlets. And what they revealed was just how deceitful both the Biden administration and the legacy media had been regarding the Ukrainian conflict. For months, the Biden administration and the legacy media, even Fox News, have been telling us they've been pushing the narrative that Russians were just a bunch of losers. They were a bunch of drunks. They didn't even have the sense of filling up their tanks with gas or diesel. They're all stalling everywhere. They were getting crushed by the Ukrainian resistance. What is Peter Zion running around? Oh, the casualty ratios 10-1. And, and Ukraine, in the name of freedom and democracy, was destroying Russia, so much so they're going to even recapture Crimea. I mean, every time I heard it, I felt nauseous. I literally felt nauseous. You just see such blatant lying propaganda. And then we had the leak of these documents, and we found en masse, just beyond just this channel and just a few select other channels like the Duran, who were recognizing what's really happening with the leaking of these documents. And then suddenly the whole country learned it was all a lie. It was all a lie. Remember, the first casualty of war is truth. We now know that the Biden administration and NATO as a whole have been lying to the world regarding the casualty ratio suffered on the ground. As it turns out, Ukraine, according to the leaked document, not according to Steve, according to the leaked document, Ukraine was suffering 4 times the casualties of Russia at the time of the document leak. 4 times. 71,000 Ukrainians killed to Russia's 17. That was the figure several months back. Ukrainian casualties are now in the hundreds of thousands. Today, as this Fox article admits, today, as the Ukrainian commander of joint forces admitted last week, there are 7 to 10 times more Russian soldiers than there are Ukrainians on the battlefield. I'll say that again. There are 7 to 10 times more Russian soldiers than there are Ukrainians on the battlefield. No matter how many billions Mike Johnson this weekend, in yet another betrayal of his Republican base, he needs to go. Yes, he needs to go. No matter how many billions more he wants to send over to Ukraine, there is nothing that is going to overcome that massive soldier deficit. Nothing. The second reason the war is lost is that, again, no matter how big a check this betraying bunch of Republicans writes, along with their uniparty Democrat friends, writes for Ukraine, NATO's war machine simply cannot keep up with Russia. The manufacturing and production are at just 2 fundamentally different levels. Now, that same leaked document confirmed not only a disproportionate and unsustainable casualty ratio, but also that NATO simply couldn't keep up with the munitions needed to fight. It's NATO that's been running out of missiles, not Russia. Let that hit you. It's NATO. Again, remember that right when just a couple of months after the conflict started, Russia's running out of missiles. You can't keep firing missiles like that and think you're going to keep a stockpile. They're running out of missiles. Russia, as it turns out, has been stockpiling missiles for this moment for the last 10 years. And to add insult to injury, Russia's army today is bigger than what it was 2 years ago at the start of the conflict. And they have officially restocked, according to this article on Fox, they have officially restocked all of their previously destroyed tanks and repleted their entire missile inventory. Let's just be blunt. As Colonel McGregor said on this very channel, Russia is stronger now than they were before this conflict began. Russia is not losing this. So Ukraine is losing manpower, they're losing munitions, and then thirdly, the collective West is plagued with horrid, pathetic, incompetent leadership. While Putin is enjoying an 80% approval rating among the Russian people, our Western leaders' approval ratings are in the tank. Biden's in the 30s, but that's gold compared to the UK's Rishi Sunak. whose approval ratings are in the teens. Same with Emmanuel Macron of France and Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany. Their approval ratings are in the teens. 80+% of the people of Germany, of the UK, of France hate their leader. The absolute inversion of Putin. It's time to realize that the old Western-led liberal international order, the secular globalist order, is indeed unraveling. It's unraveling everywhere we look. And no amount of propaganda patching is going to save it. The old globalist world order really is dead. A new multipolar, nationalist, populist, civilizationalist world order is rising. And there is absolutely nothing the dolts in DC of either party can do to stop it. Over to you, gang. Over to you. Let's get to your questions here again as Josh, our moderator, assembles your questions. Remember, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club. Ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month, and you can ask me as many questions as you like. Also, I wanted to take a minute and share a real special opportunity with you to begin building your legacy through real estate. Andrew Carnegie famously said that 90% of millionaires in America are created through real estate. And think about Donald Trump. I've talked to so many of my listeners who tell me that they want to invest in real estate. They just don't know how. So I wanted to tell you about my good friend and Turley Talk sponsor, Jeff Rogowski. Jeff owns over, you're going to love this. Jeff owns over $250 million, that's billion with a B, dollars worth of real estate across America. And he is my go-to guy for real estate advice. Jeff is leading a movement of Christian patriots who are on a mission to do real estate God's way so they can walk away from their corporate jobs and build a legacy for future generations. Jeff and his team have opened up some time to talk to you guys about your goals and about how they could potentially help make those goals a reality. It's just a quick 15-minute intro call, and I really encourage you to take advantage of it. These guys are amazing. They're patriots just like us. They're one of us. Go to freeintrocall.com. That's freeintrocall.com now to book a call with Jeff and his team. A lot of people don't know this, but you don't actually need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars lying around or years of experience in order to start investing in real estate. That's what makes real estate so special. There is a path for everyone. So go to freeintrocall.com to learn more about how Jeff and his team can potentially come alongside you and help you reach your goals through real estate. Slots are limited. I do expect them to fill quickly, so don't wait. Click on that link below or go to freeintrocall.com and book an intro call today. All right, what do we got for questions here, Josh? What do we got? Kenneth Bryant, voice talent. Dr. Turley, what is your take on the very subdued reaction from Iran regarding Israel's retaliation? The reporting on it as infiltrators without naming Israel. Even Israel seems to be taking a quiet approach in reporting on it. This seems to indicate to me there is no appetite for larger war in the region from both nations, despite the recent rhetoric. What do you think? I agree with you entirely, Kenneth. I think these are more postured responses. That's why I called them ceremonial retaliations. They do have to save face. They have to show their people that they are willing to defend them. They also have to show their enemies that they're willing to defend them in order to deter from other attacks. And I think that's exactly, but they're doing it in such a way that's measured so as to prevent escalation. Israel wants attention brought on Iran by Western media so that attention is taken away from Gaza. And then Iran wants to show the Middle East and this new rising multipolar world that they're in charge now, that they're not going to be pushed around by NATO or the collective West or by Israel. they're going to assert now their hegemony, their sovereignty as over against the fledgling, flailing West. So I think you're absolutely right. But they're trying to do this in such a way where it's more postured rather than escalated. Missy, how do we keep ourselves well informed while not letting it overwhelm us? Staying positive emotionally, from groceries to worldwide war, seems every aspect of our current lives is spiraling. You're absolutely right, Missy. It is crazy. It is absolutely crazy. We talk about post-normal times. That is a scholarly paradigm of the interregnum period that we live in between the no longer and the not yet. So the globalist world has collapsed. But yet the new civilizationalist world that we're all expecting and looking forward to, which will have its own problems, but wokeness and liberalism and so globalism won't be one of them. This new civilizationist world has yet to take full control and rewrite the rules and bring and restore order. So we are in a period known as post-normal times. It's an interregnum period, meaning that anything that was normal in the past no longer applies now, because that old paradigm is now dead, right? This old sort of, rules-based order, sort of, your liberal political order that was operative for several decades is now just in disarray. And so now nothing makes sense anymore. Now our judicial system is freeing criminals and locking up law-abiding citizens. It's all insane. Nothing makes sense. I have to say, Missy, I think about this a lot because, I'm on the front lines of it with you as well, and it affects me. I think it's two things. I think it's three things in particular. First, stay focused on your faith. Stay focused on God as the eternal standard of life. It's not even eternal standard, the eternal source of life itself. So we exist. The technical term is epiphenomenally. We are the products of the material temporal products of or creations of life and being in and of itself. So the difference is we're contingent. There's a time we didn't exist, then we were born, we live, blah, 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 and then we die. And there's a time we don't exist, but that's contingent. We're dependent beings. But God is not dependent on anything, right? Eternality and so forth. This is all traditions hold this in common, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Taoism, you name it, all Hinduism. God, Brahman, so is infinite, eternal being that can never begins and never ends, right? God is infinite and eternal. So we look to God for the source of life to get beyond all of this crazy, death and destruction and breaking and so forth. Focus on God, and that is the source of life, where all cares, if we focus intently, all cares do begin to melt away. Then the second thing is, from that, you want to fill your life as much as possible with truth, goodness, and beauty. So make sure you're reading beautiful, evocative books, literature, right? Make sure you're trying to encounter beautiful art. Make sure you encounter glorious architecture. I don't know if you caught what Tucker said about architecture a few weeks back in his interview with Chris Cuomo, but it was brilliant. We really do have a lot of soul-killing architecture in our modern age, in our modern utilitarian age, where everything just looks like a factory. And the message that's being sent is, you don't matter. Your only value is your use. And once you're no longer useful, you will be replaced. Whereas when you walk into a cathedral, you see it reconstitutes space and time for what it really is. A cathedral makes reality real, as it were, reality that we can't see because God is eternal. A cathedral or just any beautiful building makes the goodness and the love that created our world tangible and materialized in our lives. And then that conveys the notion that you mean something, that you're absolutely valuable, and you have worth beyond your use. Your worth is intrinsic. In the Christian tradition, you're creating the image of God. You bear an image in your very being that is infinitely worthy, right? Regardless of your use. So fill your life with truth, goodness, and beauty. Good art, literature, architecture, beautiful music, poetry, wonderful movies, cinema, stories, whatever they happen to be. Get engrossed in glorious and in extraordinary encounters of truth, goodness, and beauty. And then thirdly, don't forget we're winning. I know it's hard to see because we're in this interregnum period, but the globalist order is dead. And all of this insanity evidences that it's dead and unraveling, and that a new world is rising that is traditionalist, that's religious, that's committed to custom and culture and nation and civilization. So focus on those three things, and that'll help you relativize the headlines of the day. Michael, question, Dr. Steve, have you always been a mentor to, you have always been. I thought you were asking me. You have always been a mentor to me, and your words of wisdom have helped me through hard times. How concerned should we be about the Faustian hush money trial? No question about. And thank you for those kind words, Michael. At this point, honestly, I don't think we should be that concerned. A lot of it is just hype and it's the Hollywoodizing of our news. I don't know what this jury's going to do. Trustworthiness of jurors is always an issue in jury selection. And that's just on steroids with this Trump trial. I've made my opinion clear. I believe it is impossible to be impartial towards a president. I believe it is impossible to be impartial towards a national figure like a president. You're either going to love him or you're going to hate him. Political bias is inevitable, and that's inevitably going to factor into your decision of what to do with them. In the end, it's only ending up strengthening Trump so far, and I don't expect that pattern to stop. So even if he were to be convicted, I think most people would turn around and say this was a sham trial, it was a kangaroo court, and we don't buy it. Now we'll see. Okay, it could change, right? I'm not an oracle in that sense. It could change. In other words, I'm understanding the thermodynamics, the big picture of where we're going, the macro sociology. But at micro levels, anything can happen. Anything can, and you can change. The ship is moving in a particular direction, but I can't tell you what various people are going to do on different levels of the ship or the cab and so forth. I'm going to use my best judgment as you do. So right now, I don't think it's an issue. No matter what happens, if you have one juror who comes out and says, I don't buy this. I think he's innocent. Well, it's a hung jury, and he walks out the courtroom swinging his cane. If they convict him and he gets sentenced, most likely to some kind of home prison or something like that, he wouldn't be sent to an actual prison house. If that happens, I just think, again, historically speaking, Nelson Mandela's, Martin Luther King's, even Lula's in Brazil, they tend to do politicians tend to do really, really well from jail. I don't know what it is. I just think a lot of people, I just think it shores up their populist bona fides, and the people see them as fundamentally one of them. They've been a victim of the system just as we have, and that's the person we want representing us. So I just think it just further strengthens his populist appeal in the end. Thank you, Michael. Susan, what is your intuition about Mike Johnson after his meeting with Trump and Trump's support? I hope he gave Mike a swift kick in the arse. I think Johnson is just a disaster. Another Paul Ryan, another Kevin McCarthy, just another John Boehner, just another disaster who consistently works with Democrats, the majority of Democrats and a minority of Republicans to get legislation passed, just as Nancy Pelosi would. the Republican Party has never been able to shake the notion of being an opposition party. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. Washington is owned by the Democrats. It's rented by the Republicans. Republicans never, ever feel like they own the city. And so they always feel like they have to play by rules that the Democrats have written. So the Democrats are perfect. Democrats, in the end, don't care who's in power. They really don't. I don't think they do, because they know they don't care who's in electoral power, because they know they have the ethos power. They have the city. They have the ethos of the swamp. They are the swamp caretakers, and the Republicans are just there to rent. So I think Mike Johnson, I mean, I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I thought he was more or less being blackmailed by virtue of these rhino Republicans who are like basically saying, I'm going to leave. I'm going to retire, and you're not going to have a majority anymore unless you bring these issues up to a vote, unless we get warrantless FISA, unless we get this budget, unless we get $60 billion to Ukraine. And I don't give a flip about the border, because they're globalists. Their donors don't give a flip about the border. That's cheap labor. So I just think, and they're generally in safe seats, red seats, so they don't worry about the new Democrat majority, as it were, of illicit voters. So I gave him the benefit of the doubt. Now, especially after he's been coming out and saying, well, if we don't fund Ukraine, Putin's going to march through Europe. That's when I just say, all right, that's it. I'm done. This guy has been, well, they call it congressional capture. And congressional capture is when your lobbyists, when your donors, and when your intelligence agencies create a perfect storm around you in private, and then convince you that it is to your benefit. Of course, to the country's benefit. We heard it with Carrie Lake, in that recording that was leaked. It's to your benefit that you pass this legislation, because, you're not going to be speaker forever. And, when you're done, you definitely want to be able to sit on these 3, 4, 5 boards, all of which are going to be paying you 7 figures a year just to sit on those boards. Be ashamed all of a sudden there wasn't a board seat for you then, but we guarantee you there will be, but you got to pass. So he's just been bribed. That's the way I see it. He's been bribed. So now he's just because they all come out talking the same way. They all come out with the same talking points. They all come out with the same advisory class whispering worm tongue like in their ear. So it's a tragedy. That's why I love Trump so much. I love Trump because he while made mistakes, like a John Bolton and so forth, certainly made mistakes. In the end, he always seemed to be true to really sticking it to the swamp, unlike Mike Johnson. Sad. And so, hopefully, Trump gave him a good kick in the butt, saying, "Dude, get it together." He doesn't seem to be listening, unfortunately. Carol, I'm a poll worker Tuesday for Pennsylvania primaries. God bless you, Carol. Awesome. Will our supposed 2-point lead hold out, in your opinion? Your grandma groupie again. Thanks, Carol. I'm my grandma groupie. All right. Well, so far, so good. So far, so good. Remember, I forget what Biden. Let's see. Let's take a look at just. Oh, did I turn off my computer? Yeah, good. Let's put this in historical context here. Let's look at the Real Clear Politics average Pennsylvania 2020. So the day before the election in Pennsylvania, Biden was up by a point, 1.2. Let's see. Is this? Make sure I've got to. Yeah, this is 2020. That's lower than I thought. But he was up 1.2 in Pennsylvania, and he won, quote unquote, with 80,000 votes. Now Trump is up to, now Rich Barris's poll has him up 5. Now it's a very extensive poll within the last couple of weeks, all throughout the state, and he has him up 5, and then Echelon has him up 4. So We'll see. What's the average right now? Let me see. Oh, come on. You don't give it to me. Politics average 2024. To write it in. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at all the polling averages for Pennsylvania, and they've got Biden up 0.5 for this one, which is interesting. Where is Echelon? They didn't even include Echelon yet. That's weird. They didn't include Echelon there. They've got the latest one was Fox News from the 16th, and that's a tie. Oh, and they got the Franklin and Marshall one. That's absurd, which is Biden plus 10. That's just such an outlier, but that's skewing the results. It should be about a Trump point, a plus 1 around that. So the point is that if that Biden barely squeaked by with 80,000 votes, right, on with a 2-point advantage, and if Trump has, if again just decreases that to a 1-point advantage for Biden or a 1 point or 2-point advantage for Trump, it's gonna swing dramatically to the other side. So yes, I think he'll maintain it. Thus far, I don't see anything to indicate otherwise. The very fact that Biden was in Pennsylvania the other day, talking about his uncle who got eaten by cannibals. You probably saw that. Just so funny. Anyway, the fact that he was there in Pennsylvania shows they're very, very afraid of losing the Keystone State. So keep it going. Yeah, let's see. I'm really excited to see how those primaries work out, even though everybody knows Trump's got the nomination. It's just a great insight to how motivated voters are to come on out and support their candidate. Thanks, Carol. Travis, good morning, Dr. Steve. As a recent Marine Corps vet and an Army reservist, do you think that the United States will be drawn into another major Middle East conflict given the tensions between Iran and Israel? Well, I think that's unfortunately what Bibi wants, because I think that he thinks that'll give him cover. I mean, obviously, he wants an ally to help him fight enemies of Israel. So I'm not happy about him doing that. I think cooler heads will prevail. I do. Just the way we've seen. I mean, it got really close in Ukrainian theater when you had that Russian hypersonic missile blowing up all the NATO equipment in Lviv, right at the far west of Ukraine, right against the border of Poland. You had the rogue Ukraine missile. It turns out they originally tried to blame it, blow up inside Poland. So it's very, very tense a couple of times, triggering Article 5 and all with NATO. So, but we've been able to avoid it, and it looks like we'll continue to avoid it. We've resigned ourselves to just simply writing them checks at this point in Ukraine, and that might just be the case in Israel. I just don't think they want to get involved at all. Again, they'll give some ceremonial support, maybe help with the Iron Dome, shoot down some missiles coming in. Even the Kingdom of Jordan was doing that. A lot of Arabs and Islamists are very, very upset about that. But in the end, I don't think we will. I don't think we're going to get involved. There is no appetite whatsoever among the American people to get involved in another foreign war. They've just had it. They don't want America to be the lone policeman of the liberal international order anymore. They just don't want it. Sean, Dr. Steve, I believe DC's weakness in the Middle East has damaged our credibility even further in the region. Do you see things getting worse before the election? I do. I don't see Israel giving any sign that they're willing to let up on Gaza, any kind of retreats or strategic retreats, and they're ready to go back in. They're ready to expand the war in other regions involving the Palestinians. So they're hitting key targets in Lebanon, key targets in Iraq and Syria, now in Iran. So I just see this as continuing to. I see this continuing to play out in the Middle East, but even more so here at home with like Dearborn, Michigan, the highest density Muslim population in the country. Biden lost that in a 3-1 vote for the primaries in Michigan, and Michigan, Trump is now up 5. Let's see where he is right now with the Real Clear Politics average in Michigan. Yeah, he's up 3. Trump. In every 3.3 in Michigan. He's led every single poll since October. And I think one of the reasons for that is the and that's interesting. October 7th. I think one of the reasons for that is because of just this massive shift away by the Arab American and Muslim American electorate from Biden, just as a protest vote. So yeah, so I think it's going to get worse in the Middle East, though contained. I hopefully it'll stay contained. Again, anything can happen. It's a powder keg. Hopefully it'll stay contained, and but I think it'll get worse there, and it'll get worse here politically for Biden. Gang, remember, just YouTube has, if you're just joining us, YouTube has demonetized our channel. So if you're looking for the super chats to ask a question, they've been disabled. So just click on the link below. Join our Insiders Club. Ask me your questions through that platform. Just click on the link below or go to join.turleytalks.com. That's join.turleytalks.com. There it is. Just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I will answer them right here. What else have we got here, my friend? Sean, Dr. C, do you think the globalist clowns want World War III before November because they know if Trump's elected, they're done? So they'd rather destroy the world rather than lose their power. I mean, that's the fear. That's the fear. These are very evil people. You would hope that they just, would cash out, take your money. Take your money, take your profits, and go live on a beach the rest of your life. You would hope most of them are thinking in that way. But yeah, it seems like some of them would just rather, that's what they're willing to sacrifice Ukraine. They're willing to defend the liberal international order down to the last Ukrainian, right? So they're pretty horrible people. I wouldn't doubt it. It's just that I don't think they have the power. And I think a lot of them recognize they don't have the power they thought they did. I think a lot of them recognize that they certainly have a lot of power. But I think a lot of them recognize that they are, while they have all the cultural institutional levers of power, they don't have the people. I think they recognize that. Again, that's what wokeness was an attempt to do. It was an attempt to intimidate as much of the population as possible into submission, because wokeness does not allow for any dissent. So wokeness is the new weird ideology, literally religious ideology being superimposed on the nation through the imposition of a new kind of caste system that forced compliance. And any kind of disagreement whatsoever was seen as dissent, and dissent was heresy. Silence is compliance. And it didn't work. It ended up splitting the left. That's the weird thing with wokeness, is wokeness ended up actually drawing the ire of the left. The right united against it, but the left split over it. We talk about that a lot. So yeah, it's very possible they could do that. They would rather destroy the world than lose their power. In other words, yeah, if we're not ruling the world, there won't be a world to rule. That's in effect what they could be saying. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how many of them there are. Again, I just think they've already lost it. That's the thing. That's even this latest Mike Johnson betrayal this weekend, passing this new aid bill for 60 billion for Ukraine. I mean, it just seems so lackluster. It just seems like when they talk into the camera, none of them believe it. Putin's going to march through Europe. You know that's bullshit. You don't believe it. Just tell us the truth. Your donors and the military-industrial complex gotcha. Okay, and they're promising you 7-figure salary when you get out of here for sitting on a board. It's going to make Hunter Biden's deal at Burisma look tame by comparison. They're just be honest. Stop it with this nonsense. So I just don't even think they believe it anymore. So we are in this in betwixt and in between period of the no longer and the not yet. And until then, it's just things are just going to be, they're going to look really bizarre. Thanks, Sean. Benton. Question. The Vietnam War was run by LBJ and the military-industrial complex. It was a dismal failure. It took Nixon and Kissinger to get us out of that quagmire. Will it take Trump to get us out of this drought? Yes, I do. I do think so. So right. So Kissinger came in and basically argued Kissinger made geopolitics cool again. Geopolitics after World War I and World War II were basically jettisoned. But Kissinger brought in the whole notion of a balance of power back into the equation, and then he believed that by swaying China over to our side, rather economically, rather than to be sided with the Soviet Union ideologically, was key to rebalancing the global power in our favor. So for right or for wrong, I got a lot of issues with Kissinger, no question. But he brought some new thinking into Washington D.C. that enabled us to get out of Vietnam and largely stay out of those kind of conflicts for quite some time, until really, in many ways, until the Gulf War 20 years later or so. So I think so. I think Trump has made it absolutely clear when he comes in, it's peace. Enough with the killing. Enough. We got to stop. Enough with the killing. We're not going to help. We're not going to give you a dime until you stop killing. I'm not going to start with Putin's going to march into Europe. No, I'm not playing that game. Not playing that silliness. There's no Mike Pence nonsense here. We're going to be more concerned about our borders than the borders around out 10,000 miles away. We're going to be more concerned about our manufacturing jobs than we will be about the manufacturing jobs in China. We're going to be more concerned about our culture than we are in the cultural integrity of any other nation like Ukraine. So that America First framework, but with American power, geopolitical power, is going to be, it seems to me, the new frame of reference for the 21st century international order. Awesome, Benton. Paul, I believe that Mike Johnson is being pressured by Rhino Republicans, but not because of his past, and I don't think he's on the take. In my opinion, he caved because some of the rhinos may retire early. Yep, that's true. Throwing the House over to the Dems. It would be bad if Johnson was ousted and Hakeem Jeffries was voted in. As bad as it is right now, having the Dems and the rhinos in charge would be much worse. It's only until November, and I think he's sacrificing his reputation, taking one for the team. You may be right, Paul. I think that's very sober. I think that's very right on. I do. I guess maybe my frustrations are taking over. You notice I've been a little black-pilled of late. I'll let you guys in on what's going on with that in due course. But I hope you're right. I do, and I like your attitude. Look, this sucks, but it's infinitely better than having freaking Hakeem Jeffries in there. So I'm with you. I think he is being blackmailed by these utterly odious rhinos. And it's not him per se. It's the rhinos that are so gross and utterly disgusting. What the Republican Party turned into under Karl Rove it's got to be one of the most horrific examples of a cesspool infiltrating a political party. I mean, you look at the magnificence of what Reagan had built and what even the 1994 congressional coalition of Gingrich had built. And you look at the way it just got squandered by the Bushites and the Rovites, and even to a certain extent the National Review crowd, or at least a third of their wing, a particular wing of the National Review crowd, the David Frenches of the world, who are now all, or what's his name, that where they're all on CNN and MSNBC, and they're like, I mean, they're just disgusting, just ideologically worthless when all's said and done, just gross. So thanks, Paul. That's good. I like that attitude a lot better than to just think the guy has just been what do they call it? Congressional captured, as it were. Gang, if you're just joining us, Josh, our moderator, is putting together your questions. Because YouTube has demonetized us in this channel, all you have to do is just click on the link below and join our Insiders Club. Our super chats have been disabled. So if you want to ask me your questions, just join the Insiders Club. Ask me all the questions you like through that platform. I'll answer them right here. Just $5 a month. That's it. A lot of you are kind enough to give me 10, 15, 20, 50 bucks in the super chats. No, you don't have to do that. Just give me $5 a month. We're good. Ask me all the questions you need. Least I can do for you. All right. What else we got here? Joshy, Yeshua, Vaughn, Cassidy, Dr. Steve, I am on late. What is your assessment of the UN Security Council vote to allow Palestine to become a UN member and hence a recognized state? The U.S. used its veto power and stopped it for now. This is for right or for wrong. Okay, this is a realist position. For right or for wrong, this is the position of 85% of the world. They want a two-state solution. That's just no way around. And every major country on the planet but the United States wants it. So China, Russia, Turkey, obviously Iran, Saudi Arabia, the whole of the African continent, virtually all of Latin America, South America, everybody wants a two-state solution. It's the West that's standing against that, the collective West, and primarily the United States. Bibi Netanyahu and the current administration would not even give a two-state solution the time of day. They'll give some very good arguments of why. The biggest impediment to the two-state solution are the Palestinians. It was on the table a number of times, and it was the Palestinians that got in the way. That's the argument. Again, I'm not saying right or wrong. So you can hit it back both ways, always. This is the problem what Sam Huntington talked about in his Clash of Civilizations, of what are called cleft countries or cleft states. So cleft countries are countries that have two mutually incompatible civilizations overlapping each other. So when he talks about a clash of civilizations, he's not talking about all these different civilizations. He mentioned 7 of them, if I recall. He's not talking about all these civilizations rising up and fighting each other like this colossal war. What he's saying is, because the globalist world order was more of a system than a civilization, all it cared about was imposing a one-size-fits-all political and economic system over all people groups, regardless of their culture, regardless of their religious sentiments, regardless of their ethnicity and the like. They all operate by liberal democracy. They all are supposed to operate by corporate capitalism and basically lifestyle values and consumerism and the maximalization of individual freedom. And in the process, and then you have communism during its time, during the Cold War period, and it's imposing its own communistic one-size-fits-all political and economic order on the world as well. And what Sam Huntington argued is those two systems ended up in basically putting incompatible populations together under a single transcultural system. And so if you have these incompatible cultures like Yugoslavia, where you had Catholic, Orthodox, and Muslim populations all jumbled together in this artificially constructed state, but it didn't matter because it was being ruled ideologically by a system that was transcultural. When that system collapses, when that system falls apart, Sam Huntington predicted then all of those ethnic, cultural, religious animosities are going to flame up in those particular areas, what he called cleft countries, where you had incompatible civilizations overlapping each other. And of course, one of them is the Balkans and the old Yugoslavia. And another one, of course, was Ukraine. But the big one is Israel and Palestine. And Huntington gives some guidance on how to resolve these cleft conflicts peacefully. And he relied on, because we're entering into a civilizational arena, era, I should probably say, he relied on core civilizations, core states to resolve it. So Russia would be the core state for the orthosphere, so dealing with, Eastern Ukraine and Belarus and Georgia and Armenia, as well as Chechen and other areas, the stands that are more Islamic, but that fit in with the ortho sentiment, the Eurasian sentiment of the Russian sphere. It's not Armenia that's going to resolve the issues that are happening within that sphere. It's going to be Moscow. It's going to be Russia. It's going to be the core state. China will be the core state of the Sinosphere, and will end up arbitrating the conflicts that are going on in there. Saudi Arabia would most likely be the one to moderate and adjudicate conflicts in the Sunni arena around the world. Obviously, Iran and the Shiite world. So that's where this clash of civilizations thesis kind of works itself out. And we're just living in a world now where there's no core state to try to resolve this problem with Israel and Palestine. The United States is operating as the de facto core state representing Israel, but the Palestinians feel like they've been shafted by that core state. So they're looking to other core states like Saudi Arabia or like Yemen right now, or even to a certain extent Shiite Iran. Again, Shiite Iran's a little bit complicated in terms of their sectarian inconsistencies with the dominant Sunni population in Islam. About, I believe, 85% of Islam is Sunni. They're Shiite, and they're not Arab, they're Persian. So there's an ethnic divide there as well. So in the end, though, so when all is said and done, there is no core state. There's no core civilization to try to help resolve this cleft conflict between two incompatible civilizations. And the extent to which there is, the United States, the opposing side, the Palestinians, really don't trust it and don't recognize it. So they're going to the United Nations. But Sam Huntington said, in a civilizational world, it becomes increasingly hard for alien civilizations, outside civilizations, to resolve an intra-civilizational conflict, however incompatible. Intra meaning it's within a core sphere, a hegemony of civilizational influence. So we're in the Middle East. It's predominantly Muslim. Israel sticks out like a sore thumb. And you're just having a lot of problems. And I don't know how they get resolved, to be honest with you. It just continues to ravage these populations and the world as a whole. So there you go. That's it. So the United States is going to vote against it because they're going to vote in Netanyahu's administration's interests, which they see as a single state solution, whereas the rest of the world sees a two-state solution as the only solution. And they're just going to continue to clash for the foreseeable future. Terry, haven't you just named all the elements of Ezekiel 38 to 39? That is coming up a lot. I got to get back into my eschatology. I'll tell you that, Terry. So haven't you just named all the elements of Ezekiel 38, 39? War with a Russo-Arab-Iranian alliance attacking Israel and suffering 83% casualties, 100% material losses, giving Israel fuel from burning the weapons of war and fire sufficient for 7 years. I don't know if that's how you read it. I don't know. Maybe. I don't know if I read Ezekiel 38, 39 that way. It's certainly not the only way it's been read over the centuries. That's for sure. Dragging Russia into this. Russia has a very good relationship with Israel. Russia isn't ready to take on Israel at any point. Russia may take on us, but they're not ready to take on Israel. So I don't know, Terry. I hear you. I know that's very popular in dispensational circles right now, but I'm not a dispensationalist. I'm Orthodox. So I see, and there's no question there is prophecy involved in this regional conflict, particularly in Orthodox. There's Orthodox saints who talk about this area and a massive war that breaks out. But it actually involves more. It involves more Turkey. So the Russo-Arab alliance doesn't necessarily involve the Turks. So anyway, it's complicated in that sense. So. Sean, Dr. Steve, since the Democrat plantation can't be trusted with anything more complex than Plato. There you go. Plato. If MAGA sweeps in November, how long do you think it takes to bring stability domestically and internationally with Trump back in office? That is a very good question, Sean. I mean, the left, if you thought the left had a temper tantrum in 2016, I mean, you ain't seen nothing yet. It's gonna be rough, man. I just don't see anything around it. I don't see anything. I don't see anything other than chaos for the next couple of years. Hence why I like this paradigm post-normal times. It's gonna be chaotic over this next couple of years because the left has been basically coddled into thinking they can be as hysterical as they want as long as it's being done in defense of political correctness and wokeness. Then it's okay. You do it in defense of patriotism, faith, family, and freedom, you're going to be locked up. But you do it in the name of wokeness, you can be as violent as you want. That's basically what that is, the anarcho-tyranny that governs virtually every city today, even in red states, which to the utter shame of red state governors who need to crack down on their cities. And if they have to, I believe they have to disband city councils and take over, just like they do failing schools. If a school is failing, then the state takes over the school because the city can't be trusted to handle it. If the city cannot be trusted to handle basic law and order in accordance with the mores and the ethos of a red state, then they need to be taken over by the state. And the state needs to restore order, even if that requires National Guard troops, in my opinion. So that's, again, my opinion, personal opinion on that. So I have a feeling he will do everything he can to restore order along with red state governors, but there's going to be a lot of chaos in the process. Richard Maynard, I saw a report where middle school kids in Utah dress up as fairies and attack other kids. My gosh, have we lost our minds in Utah? Well, I've noticed a lot of this craziness is happening in red states, and I think that is deliberate. They're trying to infiltrate. But yes, we have lost our minds. Again, it's post-normal times. Anything that was considered normal 5 years ago no longer applies today. And it's because the paradigm that governed life over the course of the last several decades is collapsing and falling apart. But the new paradigm, this more nationalist, populist, traditionalist paradigm, has yet to take over and restore order. So in the process, we're literally in the midst of a kind of societal apocalypse. Benton, question, can Fox be trusted as a news source? Late last night, their narrative was different from Amit Sarfati gave a different report. Well, can they? It's a case by case basis. If they're talking about Ukraine, no, unless they're admitting they've been wrong. No, any Rupert Murdoch media outlet, from the New York Post to Fox, has been basically pushing deep state lies when it comes to Ukraine. Okay, and that's my opinion, right? But I think we show evidentially why what they're saying is factually in error. They have been pushing the notion that Ukraine is winnable, that we can get Crimea back, that Russia's falling apart, and so forth. It's the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. So they, I think they're totally untrustworthy in there. I think they have sugar-coated what's really happening in our country today. I think Tucker was the only one that was totally honest with what's going on. And that is, again, it's not left versus right. That's what That's what Fox keeps trying to push. It's Republicans versus Democrats. Just put Republicans in and everything will be fine. It's 1994 all over again, right? Gingrich revolution. Tucker was right. Tucker recognized, no, the real battle, the real animosity is not left versus right. It's not horizontal. It's vertical. It's the people versus the political class made up of both parties and made up of Fox News leadership, right? It's the people versus their pastors. It's the people versus, Hollywood and the elite. It is a globalist cabal, a globalist elite that have amassed power and prestige and affluence by tapping into globalist dynamics that sell out our country. It sells it out at the border. It sells it out in manufacturing and industry. It sells it out culturally, right? In the name of wokeness, it sells out our country. And Tucker stood up to it and he got fired. We still don't know why. So Fox is kind of a yes and no. In fairness, I don't normally go to Fox. I'll go to Fox to see what's on the front page, but I don't go to Fox for analysis anymore. I don't give Fox the time of day. Well, I don't need to. I got Twitter, right? I got X. I've got was it News Ammo? I think it's News Ammo, which is a great aggregate site that just puts together all the big major conservative publications out there, website publications, just lays out for me all the headlines, the top 5-6 headlines. And I just scan that just to get a really nice idea of what's important for patriots today. And then I have some international websites that I take a look at to keep abreast of what's going on around the country. You don't need Fox. And has the villainous Klaus Schwab expired yet? Oh, I saw that. I have not seen any news on that. I have not. Let's see. I am on X. Let me just check. I saw he admitted himself into a hospital the other day. There's a meme. It's the guy who plays Loki. I forget his name. And it's like, when you hear that Klaus Schwab was admitted to the hospital, and the first meme on Twitter goes, yes, very sad. And the second meme down below goes, well, anyway, and then let's continue our conversation. So nobody cares, right? I'm not seeing any mention of that. But yes, I wish no one any harm. God bless him. But yes, the world has been made all the worse with him in power. John, will we ever get the hostages in Gaza back? Are they still alive? Good question, John. I just don't know. I don't know if they're still alive after that barrage. I don't. That massive, this massive several-month barrage. I don't. God bless him. Pray for him. Sean, Dr. Steve, when President Trump, do you see the roadmap? Okay. Good. I didn't know if it was the same question. What do you see as the roadmap for the U.S. to earn its credibility back around the world? So what the United States has to do is it has to convey to the world that we recognize that the so-called rules-based order that we structured based on the IMF and the WTO and the World Bank, we structured that after World War II, and then it became the default world system after the fall of the Soviet Union. We have to make sure the world knows we know that is no longer the single one-size-fits-all international order for everybody else by which everyone else will be judged. That we are entering into a multipolar world, and that within a multipolar world, there are various hegemons, there are various spheres of sovereignty, as it were, that tend to be governed by dominant political actors. Russia in the orthosphere, China in the sinosphere. Japan has always been seen as having its own individual. That's the way Sam Huntington saw it, as having its own individual civilization. It's the one nation that was both a nation and a civilization at the same time. Sub-Saharan African sphere, the Northern African sphere linked in with the Middle Eastern sphere, or someone just calls Southern Asia. Eastern Europe versus Western Europe, they are not the same. They are different. One's Orthodox, the other's Catholic. They are different. They were different, certainly after, was it 1210 or 1250, whenever the split was between the Byzantine Empire and the Holy Roman Empire. So the point is that you're going to have, and then of course the United States and the Anglosphere and probably Western Europe as well. You're seeing the rise of a civilizationalist world that's governed by core states within their respective sovereignty spheres, and America has to show they respect that, and they're going to stay out of people's lives and nations' lives out of that. If America shows that, as I think they were showing to a certain extent under Trump in his America First, both domestic and foreign policy, I think there's going to be a whole new set of respect. Now, again, you're not going to get that in the Western media. Western media is still globalist. It's going to take time for that to phase out. But the media and the rest of the world, they love it. They absolutely love it. They love Trump in that sense. So, Kevin, how likely is it that all of our politicians have been captured by the deep state? Their actions and silence on the legal warfare, being probably evidence for it. Yeah, I'm with you, Kevin. I believe this is happening. The lawfare is happening solely because Republicans are allowing for it. This for a lot of them, they may feel this is the way they can finally get rid of Trump. That certainly was the case with bringing DeSantis in. Those are the worm tongues. That's what they were telling him. This is your moment. This is your moment. I just don't know the answer. I mean, I have a feeling Madison Cawthorn thinks a lot of them are captured by the deep state, this institutional capture. But I don't know how many of them are, but clearly a lot of them are. It's very, very sad how much the Republican Party has just absolutely been so thoroughly corrupted under the Bush Rove influence. It's just tragic. Just Jules, question. We just filed taxes Monday. Yes, I know. We are not with 83% tax rate after 35,000. Paid in order 10,000 to IRS. I'm so depressed. I'm with you, Just Jules. Now, this is one of the reasons why we have a lot of guys on this channel. They are all dedicated to building that parallel economy, and they're there to show you, look, you can make cash, you can make wealth, you can amputate yourself from the dominant woke economy, enter into the parallel economy, and free yourself financially. So that's why we have them. We have them on here. They're friends of the channel. They support us. They're sponsors. But we vet them all, and they got to be somebody we believe can really help our audience flourish financially. So come on now. Tap into it. Make this year, make 2024 the year you are financially set free. Gang, if you're just joining us, remember, YouTube has unfortunately demonetized our channel, so our super chats have been disabled. But if you want to ask me your questions, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club. Join join.turleytalks.com. Ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month, and I'll answer all the questions you have on this platform. Joshua, can you publish reading lists that focus on political analysis? I'm trying to delve more into this world, but more context would be extremely helpful. Yes, publish reading. I'm going to make a note for myself. We have, I think I have a list of about 10 books. I think I even did a video years back on like my top 10, my top 5 or my top 10 books that would be really good for political analysis. Trying to think how we can get that to you, maybe in a PDF or something. Josh, just keep pushing me on that. I might have something for you in the next few days, next week or so. But push me on that because it'll get lost in all the things I'm dealing with, right? So make sure you push me. But yeah, I can get you a list. I mean, one quick one, obviously, Huntington's Clash of Civilizations would be magnificent. That'd be wonderful for you, just in terms of his thesis of the geopolitics of the 21st century. That's gold. Oh, there's another one. What is that? I was just put it down. World Order and Civilizations. Let's see. Yeah, Civilizations and World Order. That is an excellent book that I could not recommend more in terms of helping you understand the emerging world order. The Civilizational State. What's the author's name there? The Rise of the Civilizational State, China, Russia, and ISIS, interestingly enough, the Islamic Caliphate, because it wasn't located. I mean, it happened to be located in Iraq and Syria, but they wanted to take over the world. The Rise of the Civilizational State, China, Russia, and the Islamic Caliphate. That is an excellent, that's Christopher Coker, Coker. That's an excellent book as well. And then Jiang Weiwei, China as a Civilizational State. That's fascinating reading. Jiang Weiwei, how do I spell this? WEI. Jiang is Zhang. China as Civilizational State, I think is the name of the book. Oh, there's the Martin Jakes one as well. Where is it? Jiang Weiwei. China Wave. That's it. The Rise of a Civilizational State. Fascinating read. That was published in 2012. So there you go. There's a little book list to get you going there, Josh. Franz. Is tabling the Mayorkas impeachment a sign of internal fragmentation, where the conflict between Israel and Iran is a sign of external fragmentation? Interesting. I mean, most Republicans wanted it. Because so much, I mean, because he's so blatantly bad. And their constituents are obviously 1,000% behind it. I don't know the answer to that question. That is a very, very interesting question. Where Israel and Iran are a sign of external fragmentation. I don't know the answer to that, Franz. That's a good, you stumped me. Stumped me on that one. Sean, Dr. Steve, if this sham trial convicts Trump, do you see New York flipping red? Or see any other blue states flipping? Good question. I don't know. It'll be contingent on the extent to which enough Americans have had it with this weaponization of lawfare. If enough Americans have had it, anything is possible. Again, there have been polls that show that Trump is within just a few percentage points, single digits in New York. That's horrifying, given that that Biden won it by 30 points in 2020. Same with Hillary in 2016. The only other state that I'm keeping an eye on outside of New York, New Jersey, because New Jersey would be the other one, is Virginia. Trump's within 4 points in Virginia. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, he was down double digits in 2020. Remember, Virginia's gone way blue with a massive amount of deep state workers who all live up in Northern Virginia. So it just became much more urban. Same thing that's happened in Arizona and Georgia that's turned it a bit blue, although those seem to have been now going back the other way. So, John, Steve, I noticed your fingers are trimmed as a guitar player. Short on the left and long on the right. Are you a player? I am, John. If you don't know, I am. You could punch in Steve Turley guitar on. Oh, look at that! Look at that! You gonna put up the volume? Whew. Back in the day, gang. Back in the day. Look at that handsome little guy. You kidding? Is that crazy? Yeah. That's your old Dr. Steve. Before he was a doctor. He was a doctor of music back then, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's appearance I did on the 700 Club. So I am a player. I keep them this way, but I don't play much anymore. The time, I just don't have it. I've got to find that time. I keep saying maybe once my kids graduate, whatever, I have more time. My youngest boy is about to graduate this year. So anyway, I am John. Enjoy. Yeah, look up Steve Turley guitar. You'll see some stuff there. You keep saying RCP average. Okay, real clear. So Joan, like, what the heck does RCP mean? Real Clear Politics average. So Real Clear Politics is a website dedicated primarily to averaging out all of the different polls out there. Now, they don't do them all. They don't have big data, if I recall. I don't think big data is included. That's Rich Barris's poll. They should have big data in there because that's a very important poll, very accurate, incredibly accurate within the margin of error. So what you do when you're analyzing polls is obviously a new poll drops, New York Times poll drops. It shows Biden 10 points ahead. And you go, wow, that's weird. I haven't seen any polls like that. Let me check it against all of these other polls. And so the RCP, Real Clear Politics, gives you all the latest polls as far back as you want to go from any year. So you could see if that's a poll that's fitting into a trend or if it's an outlier. It's a way of being able to analyze polling. There's all kinds of ways to analyze polling, and that's one of them, to see if these single polls are reflective of a wider trend. So generally speaking, I don't put forward to you any poll that's outside of a trend. I'm always checking it in light of the Real Clear Politics polling average. But if it's trending with all of these other polls using different methodologies, using different weighting systems, using different samplings, and yet they're all coming up with basically the same thing, that tends to suggest we're seeing something really happening here. Joan, if that sham criminal trial in New York convicts Trump, what happens then? I honestly think his poll numbers go up. Now, I know right now, if asked, will you vote for Trump if he's convicted in New York, the numbers go down. So the latest poll, I forget what came out, said, how are you going to vote, Trump or Biden? And it was like Trump 47, Biden 45. Will you vote for, who will you vote for if Trump is convicted? Trump drops to 40. Biden goes up 1 point. So Trump drops 7 points. Biden goes up 1 point. And then when you ask, do you think this trial is fair? 70% say no. And do you think Trump did anything wrong? 70% say no. So what we're getting there most likely is what's called a response bias. And a response bias is when a person is usually on a phone being asked a question by the pollster, they feel a kind of moral tug to answer it a certain way based on the way the pollster asks, would you still vote for Trump even if he's convicted? And a certain percentage kind of go, well, no, because it's what's called a response bias. They feel like the questioner would judge them if they said yes. So, and the very fact that they don't all turn to Biden as a result, it shows it's not particularly genuine. So they would all vote Trump in the end. So I do think Trump, if anything, in the end, I think his poll numbers go up, especially after a couple of weeks. Just Jules, what's the best address to send Trump a letter? Courthouse like Miracle on 34th Street or Mar-a-Lago? Also want to guest on the show running against Sorensen on DC. In DC, he needs visibility. Our NRCC sought him out. Let's see. I'm assuming that's the National Republican Congressional Committee. Yes, sought him out. Ugh, okay, well, running in DC as a Republican, does he have any chance? I don't know. You could check in with us, like info@turleytalks.com and put in his name and so forth. And then we have PR people, marketing people who put together our guests here. And I could put in a good word on that sense. But actually, ultimately, I don't have ultimate decision on that. I don't know what the best address is to send a letter to Trump. I don't know. You could do Mar-a-Lago. That's where he lives. I think that's his official residence. Claudia. I love that name, Claudia. Dr. Steve on Styx's live yesterday at the 7-minute mark. Comment asked if he would discuss the New World Order with you, and he said, sure. Asked that we mention it to you, and he will reach out on. Oh, sure. No, I'd love Styx. I think Styx is awesome. I love Styx. Love his analysis. I just love his disposition. I find him to be. He doesn't get overly worked up on things, but he cares about things. And I find his analysis just to be spot on. 9 times out of 10. We might, obviously we're on theologically different worlds, but I'm Orthodox too. So there is this sort of Orthodox tend to be very inclusive, as it were, transformative of more neo-pagan practices and so forth. So he has actually very, very good discussion with, if I recall, what's his name? Jonathan Pajot, the Orthodox iconographer. I think Styx is terrific. So sure, of course. Dr. Steve, Brandon Herrera is running to remove the rhino Tony Gonzalez from Congress in Texas. Do you think Trump should come out and support for every candidate running against the rhinos? Absolutely. Is there any other way to force rhinos to become extinct? That's right, Sean. I love it. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. We have to get rid of rhinos, and Trump should be backing every single challenge to them. We need to make rhinos extinct. Rhinos operate under the assumption that Democrats rightly own Washington, and there's nothing we can do about it. And so we need to govern in such a way that always gains the approval of Democrats. That's no longer acceptable. The days of the Democrats are over. We got to just get rid of them. Molly, are the pictures of people cavorting on beaches in Gaza real? I don't know. I saw that as well. I don't know. One of the things we are finding out is you do have to corroborate on X. So X gets you. I love X because it gets you immediate information, digital information right away when something happens. But then that immediacy can end up contaminated by frauds, by fraudulent video and stories. So they have to always be corroborated. Find an independent source that's seeing the same thing, and then it looks like you got something. That's what we do with our RCP average, the Real Clear Politics average. You take a poll and another. You'll find I rarely ever give you one poll when I do an analysis. Rarely. I may focus on one, but I always say this poll is corroborated by another poll. You're always looking for corroboration. Pat, what is your opinion of WinRed? Should it be used for donations? I see it shows up for all donations. Yeah, I don't know. So that's an important thing. I've never had direct interaction with WinRed, but if Laura Trump is behind it, if President Trump is behind it, then it's got to be good. Franz, would it be fair to say that the whistleblower Amanda Timpson is about to uncover slush fund business model used by the left to capture Democrats at the local level? I have to catch up with that one. I've been looking at the Boeing. I was on One America News yesterday talking about the Boeing whistleblowers. The first guy ended up getting himself Jeffrey Epstein'd. But these other guys didn't. The Fannie Willis whistleblower. Did I talk about her? I think I already talked about her. I don't have a picture of her right now. I'll have to look. If it's a person I think it is, she's really good. One suit against fans of. Claims she exposed alleged misuse of federal funds for. Yeah. I've talked about Amanda. All right, just trying to keep it all straight. I don't know how much farther it's going to go beyond Fulton County. Do you have, Franz? Do you have information that she's uncovering something that goes way, way beyond Fulton County? That'd be really interesting. Yeah, so she basically was a whistleblower on Fannie Willis's, if I recall, her campaign manager who was misusing funds. Again, it just seems to be that's all these guys do it for their own affluence in the end. This is their business model. They figured out they're good at politics, and they get to put their hands in these very lucrative cookie jars through politics. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, obviously, because that's just the nature of the politics in general. But I didn't know it went beyond Fulton County. So good question. Very good question, Franz. We'll have to look into that. Just Jules, what will be the liberal climate when Trump wins? Insane. They're going to go nuts. They're going to go absolutely nuts. We're going to see all that screaming. Nah! They're going to go nuts, But again, that's just part of it. It has to work. And nobody will want to be around them. They'll just discredit themselves more. Molly, Brussels Conservative Convention shut down. Yes, you saw that. So that's the national conservatism. And I believe wasn't Viktor Orban a scheduled speaker there, and they shut it down. Yeah, I mean the notion that Ron McIntyre talks about this a lot on his Twitter feed. Good stuff. He's with Blaze. I mean the notion that liberal democracy. This is why we're in literally post-normal times. The notion that liberal democracy actually exists is so hilarious. They run around, we defend democracy. Trump is the autocrat. They're the autocrats. They're the ones, the Justin Trudeaus are the autocrats. They're the ones who shut down any speech they deem to be hurtful and harmful to others. It's another way of just being able to dictate. It's another way of being able to govern tyrannically in such a way where you're not allowed to dissent from the prevailing viewpoint advocated by the state. So, and Brussels is doing that. Brussels has always been doing that. Brussels is, you have van der Leyen coming out and saying things like, well, if the Polish people don't, or the Italian people don't vote the way we want them to, we have tools to make them comply. I mean, they don't care about democracy. They care about technocracy. They care about technocratic feudalism, where a very small minority of oligarchs have power over literally everything. And then they use fundamentalist ideology, to keep everybody else in compliance, because that fundamentalist ideology sees all dissent as heresy. And heresy, by definition, must be excommunicated, hence cancel culture. So, so they got canceled because they're heretics. Cynthia, hello, Steve. I really enjoy your live streams and your shared knowledge. Thanks, Cynthia. Can I ask how you in the heck can these New York courts, can I ask you how in the heck can these New York courts, DAs, justices, and prosecutors get away with their unconstitutional performances? As everyone sees and knows, the corrupt bias, shall I say evil, political persecution of Trump. This is lawfare against all of our laws and Constitution. Why isn't something being done to police this horrible, corrupt injustice? Thanks again for your sharing your knowledge. Thanks, Cynthia. So this is the weak side of our federalist system. So New York has its own legal system. Granted, it can't violate the 14th Amendment. Everyone has to be treated equally and fairly. And the no question Supreme Court, if Trump's convicted, no question the Supreme Court will be dragged into this to see if he was treated fairly and equitably in accordance with the 14th Amendment. I don't think he was, but because this is just, everyone says this is absolutely legally absurd case. But until that happens, New York is allowed to do what it does under our federalist system. That states do have rights and they do have a certain level of sovereignty. There's no one in New York that's stopping it. The Republican Party is too weak in New York to stop it. The juridical system in New York is utterly corrupt, even at the appellate level. So that's why they're choosing to do it in New York. That's why they want to do the J6 trial in D.C., because they know that the corrupt jury system and legal system there will guarantee a conviction as a kangaroo court. It will get overturned by the Supreme Court, but that might not be 2 years from now. They're hoping it does the damage for November. This is lawfare. It's direct. It is literal direct election interference. So unfortunately, it's a weak side of our federal system, that if states want to be this corrupt, they can be. It all goes back to their blue state citizens. They're voting for us, which shows they're just as corrupt, if not more so. Vaughn, Dr. Steve, what do you think of Bernays' book, Propaganda? I don't know that. Bernays, Propaganda. Edward Bernays. Oh, is it from the 1930s? Organizing. Neat. I don't know, but I will look this one up, my friend. Thank you for the resource. Check that out. That should be good. Is that it? All right. Great one. Look at that at the end. I get a book recommendation. Very cool. I love it. I will add it to my list of books. All right, guys. Have a wonderful weekend. God bless. Stay safe. Stay in prayer. And I'll see you on Monday. God bless.